The dining room glowed in soft golden light. The Christmas tree shimmered in the corner, wrapped in silver ribbons and tiny white lights that reflected against the polished china. Laughter bounced off the walls as my family passed around plates of roasted turkey and cranberry sauce. It was the kind of picture-perfect Christmas you'd see in commercials. Except for one small detail. May. I sat at the far end of the table, hands folded in my lap, smiling when expected, nodding when spoken to. My older brother Mark was telling everyone about his promotion at the firm in Chicago. My cousin Alina had just bought a new house in the suburbs. My younger sister Sophie was engaged to a tech entrepreneur everyone seemed to adore. And me. I was still figuring things out. That's what they called it. When dessert was cleared, my mother clapped her hands softly. All right, everyone, gift time. The room buzzed with excitement. Boxes wrapped in glittering paper were passed around. Names were called. Laughter erupted as bows were untied and wrapping paper tore. Mark received a luxury watch from Dad. Sophie unwrapped diamond earrings. Alina got a designer handbag she'd been hinting about for months. Even my teenage nephew received the latest gaming console. I watched, smiling politely, waiting. Maybe they saved mine for last. Maybe it was something special. One by one, the pile beneath the tree shrank. Until there was nothing left. My mother glanced at the empty space under the tree, then at me, then quickly away. Oh, she said lightly, almost dismissively, I thought we agreed no gifts this year for, well, adults who aren't really settled yet. A few awkward chuckles circled the table. Mark cleared his throat. Yeah, we figured you wouldn't mind. You're not exactly contributing much these days. The words weren't loud, they didn't need to be. They hit anyway. I felt the heat rise in my face, but I kept my expression calm. For years, I'd been the family disappointment, the one who left a stable job, the one who moved across the country, the one who stopped attending every holiday because I was busy. Busy building something they never bothered to ask about. I don't mind, I said quietly. Sophie tilted her head. So, what exactly are you doing these days? Freelancing? Or is it still that little online thing? That little online thing. I looked around the table, the crystal glasses, the expensive jewelry, the comfortable certainty in their eyes. They thought I had nothing. They thought I was surviving off scraps. I reached into my jacket pocket. Actually, I said calmly, I brought something for everyone. That caught their attention. Mark smirked. Oh, you didn't have to, we weren't expecting anything. I know, I replied. From my pocket I pulled out a small stack of envelopes. Plain, cream-colored, neatly sealed. I stood and began handing them out. To Mom and Dad. To Mark. To Sophie. To Elena. They looked puzzled. Open them, I said. Paper tore again, but this time the laughter didn't follow. Inside each envelope was a document, crisp, official, signed. Mark's face drained of color first. This isn't real, he muttered. Oh, it's real, I replied. Sophie's hand trembled as she scanned the page. You own the building. 3 of them, I corrected gently, downtown, including the one your fiancé's startup rents office space in. Silent. Alina blinked rapidly. You're the majority shareholder. I nodded. In the parent company. Mom looked up at me slowly. I don't understand. 5 years ago, when I left my corporate job, everyone said I was making a mistake. I'd taken my savings and invested in struggling commercial properties no one else wanted. Old warehouses, half-empty office buildings, places people thought were dying. While they laughed at my risky phase, I renovated. While they celebrated promotions, I negotiated contracts. While they assumed I was lost, I was learning. Patiently, quietly. The envelopes contained more than proof of ownership. They contained partnership transfers. I've structured a family trust, I explained evenly. Each of you now owns a percentage. They stared at me, stunned. Why? Mark asked finally. I met his eyes. Because an empire isn't just about money, I said, it's about legacy. The room felt different now, the air heavier. Their earlier amusement had vanished, replaced by disbelief and something else. Regret. You never told us, Sophie whispered. You never asked, I replied gently. For years, I'd shown up to holidays and listened to subtle digs. Questions disguised as concern, advice I never requested. They saw the car I drove and assumed failure. They saw my quietness and assumed weakness. They never saw the contracts signed at 2 a.m. The risks taken alone. The nights I questioned myself but kept going anyway. Dad cleared his throat, his voice unsteady. Son, we thought you were struggling. I was, I said honestly, at first, but struggling isn't the same as failing. I looked at the empty space under the tree. You didn't give me a gift tonight, I continued calmly, but that's okay. I let the words settle. Because 5 years ago, when everyone doubted me, you gave me something else. They waited. Freedom, no expectations, no pressure to follow your path. That was the greatest gift you could have given. Mom's eyes filled with tears. Mark folded his documents slowly. I didn't know. I know, I said. That was the point. I didn't build my empire for applause. I built it because I believed in it, even when no one else did. The tension in the room softened, replaced by something more human, more fragile. Respect. Sophie stood and walked toward me hesitantly. I'm sorry, she said quietly. I smiled. You don't have to be. Because this moment wasn't about revenge. It wasn't about humiliation. It was about revelation. For years, I'd been invisible at this table, the underachiever, the risk-taker who never settled. Tonight, I wasn't unveiling wealth. I was unveiling resilience. The empire wasn't the buildings. It wasn't the shares. It wasn't the money sitting quietly in accounts they never imagined. It was the discipline, the patience, the silence, the belief in myself when no one clapped. I picked up my coat as the family continued staring at their papers, whispering in disbelief. Leaving already? Mom asked softly. I have an early meeting, I said with a small smile, one of our new developments. I paused at the doorway and looked back at the glowing tree. The same tree that, moments earlier, had nothing for me beneath it. I guess I did get a gift tonight, I added. They looked at me questioningly. Perspective. And with that, I stepped out into the cold winter air, not smaller, not bitter, but taller. Because sometimes the greatest empires are built in silence. And the loudest statements are made without ever raising your voice.